Hi, I'm Frank T. Scruggs, and I have taught American government and public policy for over 15 years here in Chicago, Illinois. Today, I want to take a few moments to talk about legislative oversight, especially during this time where we're seeing such a volatile situation going on with our government, which is not necessarily a bad thing because I always think that America can overcome most trials and tribulations and things that occur within our country, which has been going on for over 200 years. So, what legislative oversight or congressional oversight, as it's known, the terms are interchangeable. This, what I'm talking about, congressional oversight, it is an implied power that Congress has to kind of supervise or oversee the federal government and the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy is all of the federal agencies that are operating in government, and they're all under the direction of the executive branch or the president. And the bureaucracy includes all of the federal agencies that we interact with on a daily basis, everything from the Department of State to the Department of Health and Human Services to education to agriculture, um, energy, housing and urban development, and so on and so on. If you take a trip, you're with the TSA, which is part of Homeland Security, which is also under the direction of the president. And each cabinet officer or cabinet secretary is in charge of an agency, but they all answer to the president and are appointed by the president to head up the agencies. The CIA, the Department of Defense, virtually everything touches us from the federal government. So we're not just out in the hinterlands and the government is not aware of us. Through some form or fashion, we interact with one of the federal agencies on a daily basis. And our elected officials, Congress, make sure that they have supervision of the agency through exercising legislative oversight, which means that each committee of Congress is responsible for supervising an equivalent agency of the federal government. And they call in the agency heads and directors for hearings and to listen to proposals that they have for spending. Congress controls most of the agencies, or all of the agencies, because they are also in control of all of the funding. Congress controls the purse strings of the government. So when the president introduces a budget, it's up to Congress to decide if they want to fund that budget. If they want to fund a particular agency, Congress can choose to get rid of an agency just by not funding it. That means there's no salary, no money for equipment, office space, vehicles, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so Congress uses congressional oversight to monitor the way that the president or the executive branch exercises its authority. The executive branch is responsible for enforcement of all of the directives, policies, and laws of Congress. As we all know, Congress is the lawmaking body of the federal government. The executive branch is responsible for enforcement of all of these laws, directives, and policies. Uh, just real quick, the courts are the interpretation. They're the interpreters of the laws. They're the sole interpreter of what the Constitution means. So I usually refer to the Supreme Court as the we say so corporation, because the Constitution is whatever the Supreme Court determines that the Constitution means. Okay, so getting back, there's 5 areas of oversight that Congress has, which these 5 areas are the substance of policy, agency personnel, agency structure, the decision making process, and the budgets. Okay, so the substance of policy includes things like passing legislation, the programs that will be created under these different departments or agencies, and the impact of the programs, or how Congress evaluates these, the effectiveness of the programs, things such as WIC, like women, infant, and children, or food stamps, and payments to farmers, and so forth and so on. These are the substance of policies, or the impact that the policies have. Agency personnel is pretty much, Congress looks at the size of the staff of the agency, the personnel, the money made by the personnel, and the political activities of the personnel that actually work for the agencies. And they also can reorganize agencies. Under the Bush administration, a lot of the agencies were organized together so that they're all under the same umbrella, so that the intelligence agencies operated in conjunction with the newly created Homeland Security, which was created by George Bush as the executive, but Congress had to approve the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, so which is funded. So we know that they're happy with it so far, and the decision-making process is really, Congress require written reports from the agency. Sometimes they want to hear from the agency head in hearings, and so they'll call them up to Capitol Hill and want to have a hearing with the agency head, maybe from anything to how they're carrying out the directives to how they're spending their money, which leads us to budget. So the Congress looks at the authorization, the appropriations, and have to look at different approvals that the executive branch issue for each of the agencies. And sometimes the authorization of these things require hearings before an appropriations committee. Sometimes it's routine, and then other times it's more involved. But for more information about legislative oversight and American government, go to my website at frankscruggs.wordpress.com. I thank you for your time, and thank you for taking your time out to hear what I have to say about legislative oversight. Thank you.